Hello, philosophers. This is going to be your review of the study guide for the Robert Nozick exam, in particular for chapters on emotion, love, and happiness. So here we go. Okay, number one, starting with Nozick's general definition of love. You can find that right on page 68, where he says, and I believe the second or third sentence, that the common conception of love is that your own well-being is tied up with that of someone or something you need. Pardon me. Tied up with that of someone or something you love, not need. What an interesting Freudian slip that was. Okay, and just down below, addressing number two, he says that it's not the case that requires your well-being to be tied to every preference of the beloved, just everything that affects their well-being. And clearly there are certain preferences that we have that simply don't have that kind of impact on our well-being. We might prefer vinaigrette over Caesar salad, but realistically speaking, that can't be said to affect our well-being. Okay, number three. On page 69 and kind of going into 70, Nozick talks about the difference between infatuation and love, and I would just kind of direct you to those pages generally. One thing that we can see is that infatuation is dominated by certain thoughts and intense feelings that love, as Nozick goes on to describe in the We, simply isn't. Of course, infatuation may often precede love, and love may have moments of intense feelings and thoughts of the sort that dominate infatuation. But infatuation is essentially and definitively defined, oh, that's bad, definitively defined, my bad, by these persistent thoughts and feelings, and they are unique to infatuation. Number four, a we, according to Nozick, this is introduced on page 70, is an actual entity. It is a relational entity that is constituted by two I's whose well-beings are tied to one another, and he takes it very seriously as a new being in the world, which is the complex set of relations between the two I's that are in love, that love one another. So, number five, how does being in a we affect the individual I's that constitute the we? Nozick talks about this in depth on pages 71 and 72, where he discusses how being part of a we fundamentally alters the identity of the two I's that constitute that we. So I would direct you to that discussion there. Number six, love clearly involves risk as well as security. He gets into this discussion on the bottom of 70 and kind of up to 71, where the clear sense in which love involves risk is that because you, as the lover, have tied your well-being to that of your beloved, should the well-being of your beloved plummet, then you have signed on for your well-being to diminish as well. So there's the risk in that you've placed your well-being in the hands of another, and the other has placed their well-being in the hands of yours. So you have a mutual risk. You also have a mutual security in that, for the very same reason, should the well-being of your beloved go up or rise, then so too will yours. You, in a sense, can ride on their own success just as you may on their failure. So there is a security or a kind of insurance that goes along with being part of a we, as well as the risk. So hopefully they'll balance out or something like that. Okay, number seven, love. It's early in the morning, my apologies. On 71, love places a clear limit on the decision-making and autonomy of each of the individual lovers. And that is fairly clear in a moral sense, because once you're in a we, and any decision that fundamentally affects you now automatically fundamentally affects the other person, they get a say in those decisions. Because even if the decision is really about you, let's say your job and your decision to relocate, for example, or maybe even to go into another position that has radically different hours at work, that fundamentally affects you, but now, for that very reason, it affects them, and they have a moral right to have a say in decisions that fundamentally affect their well-being, which now places the part of the decision making in their hands as well as yours, and you therefore no longer have the right to what we would call unilateral decision making once you have indeed entered the we. They too, of course, have that obligation to give you a say in their decision making as well. So neither party can any longer make unilateral decisions. Okay, number 8. Nozick talks about two different ways on page 73 that the I's that constitute the we might relate to that we. That might be an I priority or a we priority, and by that I mean once we're in a we might take either of these two different positions, that I as the individual am still the fundamental priority here, and the we is just part of my life. So it's kind of within my boundaries, and I'm still the main thing here. Or we might see it the other way. The we is the primary thing here, and I am really just a part of the we. So the we is the primary entity, and I am just a part of it. So we might foreground or give priority to the I, yourself, or we might foreground and give priority to the we. And if you think about it, these are fundamentally different ways of being in a we that probably affects every other aspect of the we. And there may very well be great disagreement over which should have priority. So there you have it. There's obviously questions as to which, if either, of these is preferable or better. We kind of got into that in class a little bit. Alright, how does Nozick define being loved for yourself, and how is this different from being loved for characteristics? This, I believe, is number 9. This is addressed directly on page 75. We got into this kind of longish discussion about conditional and unconditional love. But you see here on page 75, Nozick says that to be made happy with yourself by being loved, it must be you who is loved, not some feature such as your money. Then he goes on to say, you are loved for something else when what you are loved for is a peripheral part of your own self-image or identity. So that implies that in order to be loved for yourself, what the lover loves in you must be the very same thing that you identify yourself with. There's some set of characteristics that you self-identify in terms of. Maybe it's your courage, maybe it's your compassion, maybe it's your skills and talents. However it is that you define yourself, those are the very things that the lover should love you for. Because it's only then that they're loving you for you. Only when they love you for the very things that you define yourself in terms of. If they love you for something which is different from what you define yourself in terms of, they're not really loving you for you. At least not you as you see yourself. So to love you for yourself, they must love you for what you define yourself as. Okay. Nozick then gets into this idea of trading up. He says that trading up is totally incompatible with the we, and he also warns against it as being risky and kind of ill-advised. As long as you're in a reasonably satisfactory we, you're ill-advised to seek to trade up. And by trading up, we mean looking for some other person to join into a seemingly better union with, who might exhibit the characteristics that you prize in a lover more than your current lover does. That he warns against as being risky. And you can see this on 76 and 77, he also says that the very willingness to trade up, the entertaining of this idea, is incompatible with the we, which means that if you're thinking of trading up, you have one eye open for looking for that better candidate, you're actually not in a we. Even if you think you are and say you are, if you're walking around with one eye open, you actually aren't. So the only way to be in a we is to be completely closed off to the possibility of trading up, as long as you stay in that we. Okay, I hope that helps on love.